is delta V. That's change in velocity. The number that they're giving is in meters per second.
The tank pressure is dropping.
Расход топлива за 2 минуты 30 секунд 162 килограмма. Ускорение 0,47.
162 kilograms of prop spent over a period of 2 minutes and 30 seconds into Escadatic. 978.8 after 2 minutes 45 seconds. Acceleration 0.47. Nozzle pressure of around 13 on each. 84 delta V. Acceleration 0.47. Nozzle pressure around 13 on each. Everything is excellent. 3 minutes 15 seconds. 92 delta V. Acceleration 0.47 stable. 13 on nozzles. After 30
So everything continuing to look good with the numbers being reported here by the visiting vehicle officer in Houston. We have just about under a minute left in the deorbit burn.
0.48. Went up a little bit. On acceleration 106 after 3 minutes and 40 seconds. 0.48 acceleration. 4 minutes even. 111 delta V. 0.48 for acceleration. Nozzle pressure 13 on each end. Get ready for Escadet off. 4 minutes 15 seconds. 119, 120. Nozzle pressure 13.0 or thereabouts. Cadou parameters nominal. 4 minutes 30 seconds. 125 delta V. 0.48. Main engine cutoff command executed. Cadou open. Confirmed. And
confirmation the deorbit burn has ended. The engine has been cut out.
98 is the final delta V per onboard computer has 0.20.
And the visiting vehicle officer here in Houston reporting numbers look good. A good burn. That means the engine fired for its expected duration, and the change in velocity, that delta V you keep hearing, was pretty much right on the money. They were looking for about 128 meters per second change, and it's almost exactly what they ended up with. So with that, the deorbit burn being complete, that means the orbit of the Soyuz spacecraft has now been altered to ultimately have it intersecting with the steppe of Kazakhstan during this orbit. So now it's going to continue to descend in altitude, eventually moving down. It's still about 250 statute miles, or a little bit less now, over the Earth's surface. It's going to continue to move down, and then in a little over 25 minutes from now, we'll be at our next milestone, which will be the module separation. That'll occur typically about 27 minutes after the deorbit burn. That'll come up at 6:19 a.m. Central Time, 7:19 a.m. Eastern, and that will be the physical separation of two of the three modules from that descent middle section where the crew is residing, and they're going to land in throughout the rest of the operation. So the top orbital portion and the bottom service module will split off. They'll eventually burn up in the Earth's atmosphere, and then the center portion, the descent module, will continue its way down, at having the heat shield, the parachutes, and all the other systems required to actually land the capsule in Kazakhstan this morning.
Copy. Checking all parameters, all nominal.
Рекомендация. Расскажите нам, что все-таки с креслом произошло, с ложементом.
Why? We'd like to know what happened with the seat liner.
Почувствовал, что он как бы в какой-то момент заколебался, кресло заколебалось, и я видел, что он приподнимается.
Ricky thought that he felt his seat vibrate, and I thought I saw him lift up. Can you please tighten the straps? That should take care of it.
Кресло сверху, где амортизатор.
No, it's not the seat liner. It's the seat itself where the shock absorber is.
Из замка заголовник вышел, что ли, там?
Да.
At headrest? That's correct. So pressure drops.
Просто защелкнул, что ли, там?
So what did you do with the seat? Did you just click it? Yeah, I reached in there and clicked.
Да.
Ну, понятно. Ладно, только, Олег, сейчас больше ничего не предпринимаю, ладно?
All right, so you think it's restrained in place right now, is that correct? Yes? All right, then, Oleg, don't do anything else.
Вообще ничего. Сиди на месте и все.
About what? About anything. Just stay in your seat and do nothing.
So at this point, the crew locked securely in their seats and strapped in. Each one is in a seat inside the Soyuz spacecraft with a seat liner that before their flight gets specially molded. They actually sit in a seat mold in their suits and have it custom made for each of the crew members. That's just to ensure they have the snuggest fit possible while they're inside that Soyuz spacecraft for all of the G-forces and other forces that they're going to experience during this landing coming up. But our first major milestone of this section now down with the deorbit burn done successfully. Everything looking good from the data received in the Russian Mission Control Center over there in Koryov and confirmed by our visiting vehicle officer here in Houston. Again, the next big milestone coming up as they continue to descend through the Earth's atmosphere is going to be that separation of the different modules. Once that occurs, they'll be at an altitude of about 87 miles or so over the Earth's surface. And this gives you kind of a breakdown of the Soyuz spacecraft, again made up of three primary pieces. The orbital module up at the top, which actually is used to dock with the International Space Station and provide some additional room for the crew while they're in flight. They're largely staying out of it, obviously, during today's operations, but for the ascent and the trip up to the International Space Station, especially if they're on a 2-day trip, that does provide some extra facilities and leg room for the crew members to stretch out. The descent module is where they're in today, and that's the only portion that'll survive the actual re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere, weighing in at just about 2,900 kilograms. It has all of the crew's seating, also has reaction jets for controlling that re-entry, has the parachutes and life support systems necessary on board, and that's where they'll be touching down pretty soon in Kazakhstan. And then that instrumentation and service module on the bottom, having the solar arrays, batteries, avionics, and other equipment, as well as the large orbital maneuvering engines, the big one of which they just used for the deorbit burn. But both that service module and the orbital module will split off from the descent module. That's planned to take place at 6:19 a.m. Central Time, 7:19 a.m. Eastern, and those two pieces will burn up in the Earth's atmosphere while the descent module continues through its entry. This gives you kind of a timeline of events of how this is going to take place. That braking impulse is what just occurred, that deorbit burn. The modules will separate, again at an altitude of about 87 miles over the Earth's surface, and then they'll begin the re-entry. The service module and the orbital module will burn up upon re-entry, while the Soyuz descent module makes this controlled descent. There will be some spotty or Radicom during the re-entry portion typically, especially as they enter into what's known as a plasma, so the intense heat of re-entry builds up around the spacecraft and can interfere with the communications, so it's typical to lose communication with the spacecraft during that phase. Once they are ultimately well inside the Earth's atmosphere and pass the largest G loads, they'll be exposed to about 4 to 5 Gs, so 4 to 5 times Earth's gravity during this descent. The command will be given to open the chutes with an initial drogue chute coming out to slow the vehicle down, and then the large main parachute coming in to do the heavy lifting, slowing the vehicle down to about 7.2 meters per second until touching down with the soft landing engines firing just before touchdown. And also at this point, back down on the ground, the search and recovery forces have moved out from Jezkazgan, the closest airport to the landing zone. Combined teams from NASA and Roscosmos will be on helicopters bound for the landing site as we speak. And the primary forces, Russian search and recovery forces, moving out and also in the helicopters, but also on all-terrain vehicles to basically circle the expected landing zone, the calculated landing zone. And they'll be in position to quickly touch down and actually follow the crew module's descent under parachutes, and then landing these helicopters fairly soon after touchdown, so specialists can move in and begin extracting the crew from the spacecraft, also doing things like setting up a medical tent, as well as our video views of the landing itself.